All right. Welcome back to Directing Dread episode. What episode are we?
7?
Episode 7. Welcome back. Lots to talk about. I'm working on my YouTube voice because apparently now you need to be a YouTuber to make Hollywood horror films. This is what's happened in the last 2 weeks. I went away on a scout for this TV show I'm working on and came back and the whole industry changed. What the hell happened?
A bunch of YouTubers made hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office, and I can't believe I'm seeing not just one, not two, but like 3 or 4 films this year do this successful. It's crazy.
The entire industry changed dramatically in the last 2 weeks. My feed is filled with stories of success with this new crop of directors, which is really exciting and super cool and actually makes a lot of sense and validates sort of what we've been talking about, how this genre does not require big stars or big budgets to really break out. And then boom, boom, so much evidence of that actually being the case, which is awesome. I will admit, though, I was perhaps wrong in our first episode saying that film festivals are your best bet. It seems like YouTube is now the breeding ground, and that's where Hollywood now is going to be throwing all the money, at least in the next little while.
So they're going to be finding all the filmmakers, poaching anyone that's made a horror film that does well online. Hey, you're ours now. Come do Resident Evil, whatever. So that's what's going to happen forever. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all the big franchises will slowly be taken over by YouTubers. And that's the world we live in.
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense because we've always encountered these moments in Hollywood where horror like rejuvenates the industry. It happens time and time again. It's history repeating itself over and over again. And this just happens to be a really cool, big, modern moment at a time where we thought Gen Z was going to like not be interested in theaters and be addicted to their phones and be watching vertical bullshit. Instead, they're showing up in big numbers for original, creative films that are produced with relatively low budgets, and in the case of Obsession, extremely low budgets. It's amazing.
I think you bring up a good point because I was just doing my little review of the box office recently, and we have big movies coming out like He-Man, and we have the Grogu movie, and those movies have giant budgets, and yet, like you just said, everyone is flocking to see these low-budget, independent, creative movies, and I think it's within horror, but it's also people want original stories. And the best way to get original stories, at least in the last 2 weeks, is through horror. And it's so great to be kind of a horror filmmaker in this kind of time because, so I was looking this up. I almost didn't believe it. So I looked up the opening weekend for The Backrooms that just came out, $81 million in the opening weekend. I could not believe that. And I feel like every Disney executive is like, how do we emulate that for Grogu 2? How do we do that? What do we do? Because
Grogu 2. That's a good title for the sequel.
That's what they're looking for.
What's interesting about that is how young he is. It's very cool that they hired him they said they hired him originally when he was like 16, or they started the conversation. He was 18 when he directed it. Was that right? No, 19. I think it was like he was 19 while directing it. Now he's 20. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible that he was able to pull off such an amazing feat in the box office at being such a young age. That's a record.
20 years old, he's making me look bad. What the hell?
Well, it's a really interesting story, and every trade publication's running with this story that there's a seismic shift in Hollywood and there's this new crop of directors, and look, young voices and young directors can bring in young audiences, and this is like this new thing, which it's not. Like teenagers have always been going to movies. That's just cinema. Right? Teenagers have always gone to see horror films. It's just in the last few years since COVID and since social media and TikTok, that sort of thing has taken off. And especially since the pandemic, the numbers have been dwindling. So it's a really good story. But historically speaking, horror films are made for teenagers. And that this is what should be happening. Young, crazy people with fresh voices and crazy ideas should be given opportunities if they've proven themselves. These are not directors that came out of nowhere. These are directors that have put in the 10,000 hours. Even Kane Parsons making Backrooms, he's put in the hours to build something with his own hands through Blender. He built something that was valuable in terms of entertainment that people came and flocked to and built lore around. And that he built a valuable IP online. He didn't invent Backrooms. Apparently, Backrooms was like a photo that people were looking on, but he's the one that made the video that really took off and built the lore.
I think it was like a classic creepypasta because there's always like hundreds of variations and stuff like that. And what I'm seeing is just like it's crazy to see these low budget independent films that happen to be horror doing better than the big budget movies. And just being in that horror world right now, it really does feel like you just said, this has happened before, but everything comes in circles. And I thought we were going to be in a never ending Marvel phase of sequelitis for the rest of the world.
We were for
And
the last 10 years.
and it really
Yeah.
felt like that. It felt like the same thing every weekend. And the fact that these kind of movies and these young voices, these new voices, are almost getting their experience and their filmmaking prowess and doing all the structuring work for their directing from YouTube. And it makes a lot of sense because you're making little movies and you're getting that instant reaction from an audience. It's like I make something and I get a comment an hour later. And it's so cool to have that instant, almost gratification, but critical analysis where you can see what's working for your audience and what's not. And I think that's why these directors have found such success, is because they started so young. They were able to utilize and kind of bring all these filmmaking techniques together to create stuff like this. And then got that instant reaction. They kept doing it. And then it just built up until somebody noticed. And then they got to do it on the big screen where they had, like you just said, all of those 10,000 hours to practice. So it really seems like a great training ground to find the new exciting voices that we're now seeing.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. The profit margin is insane on Obsession. It's just insane. They've made, as of today, which is, what's the date? June 4th. The movie's made almost $167 million on a $750,000 budget. That is an insane profit margin for that movie. And the fact that it climbed weekend after weekend, it broke the 44-year record that E.T. had. Like E.T. E.T. is one of the greatest cinematic masterpiece films ever made, and this little horror movie that was made independently has beaten it down, or at least reached its heights, which is just fascinating to see.
I think it just shows how universal horror is. Like it shows that like horror will never go away. It's that one genre, it's that one emotional effect that like anyone can relate to. And I think Obsession really works because of that universal aspect and that universal kind of thing with romance and obsession over romance, because anyone, whether they're in a relationship or they're not in a relationship, whatever, they can relate to liking someone or wishing they were liked. And I think it's kind of a horror movie kind of playing on the younger generation's kind of aspect with love and dating and all this stuff. And I think that's why it connected so hard, because anyone can relate to something like that. Anyway, that's what I took away from it, at least.
As filmmakers, you and I like to go to the movies. Like for me, going to the cinema is one of my favorite things in the whole world. And I try to see every horror film in the theater if possible. I look forward to it every week. I try to go twice. And I've been worried about the future of cinema for the last many years. Since, the last 6-7 years, I've been pretty worried about the future of cinema. There's a very exciting prospect now that the future of cinema is going to be okay.
It gives me hope too. Like, honestly, like, and not to monopolize the conversation, but like my feature is premiering in 3 weeks. And like, it really feels like there is a place for these lower budget movies that work within genre. And it gives me hope. Like seeing these guys that are my age, like I think Curry is literally my age. He's 26. And even Parsons, who's younger, it's like exactly that age demographic that I'm in. It kind of shows that I can really do it. I can build a career out of this, and hopefully it shows other filmmakers that you can really do something that connects with a lot of people and exceed what you might even expect you could do yourself. So it's a really exciting time for anyone in independent filmmaking and horror, because I think that's also another thing to be said, is that while yes, this is directing dread, I think a lot of it comes from, these are like independently produced films, and they're going toe to toe with the biggest companies in the world, and people are choosing to actively go spend their money on these indie films. And I think it kind of shows these big executives, we don't want sequel after sequel, we don't want CGI mess after CGI mess, we want something new, we want something we haven't seen. And it seems that genre right now that's giving us that exciting stuff is horror. So it really is a great time to be a horror filmmaker in any regard of what budget you're working with. Even movies with, say, a little bit higher budget like Hokum. I think Hokum was made on around a $5 million budget. And I've seen the other movies we're talking about, but that movie struck a chord with me. It wasn't the biggest box office, maybe explosion, as in a good way, not bomb. But it wasn't like, it didn't take off maybe as much as the Backrooms or Obsession did with money-wise. But the critical reception it got, and obviously it made its budget back, I just felt that Hokum was a movie almost for writers and for filmmakers. The way it kind of leaned into that protagonist, and it kind of gave me the best I would say, viewing experience in a theater I've had in the last, I'd say, 6 months. Like, it really gave me an experience. Like, when it ended, and I love how it doesn't end on a jump scare, it doesn't end on anything besides concluding the character arc through the visual interpretation of the protagonist's writing. I can't tell you, just as someone who writes screen, like, I almost cried, and it was a weird feeling of being scared, and I just loved how it took the time to complete Adam Scott's character's arc as opposed to doing something else. And so even just the quality of horror on just a medium level, I've noticed, has increased. And I think the last year or two has really shown that horror is not in any regard a looked upon genre anymore. It's really going toe to toe with every other filmmaker and every other genre out there. And it's exciting to be a part of it.
It's the genre right now. The whole conversation in the film industry right now is about this genre. And you're right, Hokum's incredible. If you know, to anyone listening, if you haven't seen this movie, it's beautiful, beautifully shot. It's genuinely scary, classic feeling. I loved it as well.
And that's a good point. The classic feeling. I think that's what it was. It reminded me of like an old timey Stephen King movie I'd never seen before.
Very much.
And I'm a sucker for that. I'll watch 1408 every day. I don't care.
You know what this moment reminds me of? I'm of a different vintage of you, as I've mentioned before, a couple of years older, just a couple.
What are you, 27, 28?
Something like that. But I remember, like, when Pulp Fiction came out, I was still very young, but when Pulp Fiction came out, the studios were in a bit of the same predicament. They were making a bunch of shit. There was this stuff that wasn't really working. And then Pulp Fiction came out, and it was the highest grossing independent film of all time at that time. And it changed the Hollywood system. There's a great book called Rebels on the Backlot that's about the crop of directors that came up in the wake of Pulp Fiction, directors like David O. Russell and David Fincher and Spike Jonze, that sort of thing. And Quentin Tarantino really led the path with Pulp Fiction because it was so profitable. And what happened was every studio started to look at independent young voices, independent filmmakers that were bold in their voice, and they started to give opportunities to these directors. That's how we got Spike Jonze and David Fincher. It's because of the massive success of that independent film, Pulp Fiction. And this feels like that moment. And I've been waiting for it. I've been saying it for so long. We just need one independent film to break out that changes the mindset of all the decision makers in Hollywood. And this is the moment.
Absolutely.
It's very much mirroring that Pulp Fiction moment.
And another thing is, too, it just kind of reaffirms what I think we already know about why horror is so universal, because it, like you just said it earlier, you touched upon it a bit, but just to hammer it home, it's like you don't need a big star. You just need good performances, a good concept executed well. And you can really target that audience that way. And so movies like Obsession or even Hokum, like they're location-based. Like Hokum is more location-based than, say, maybe Obsession is. But it really just runs on that concept. And the concept itself sells the movie. And I find like that's just such a more economic way for filmmakers to work, as opposed to even trying to compete with anything else that $50 to $100 million might get you. And it kind of pushes you to be more creative, as in, how do I establish this tone? How do I create this scare? How do I create this world with this limited resources and limited budget? And I think it's just showing the absolute unbridled creativity, especially I also think with the Backrooms movie too, because they do some really cool stuff in the future there, and they kind of expanded it a bit more than I was expecting just from the YouTube shorts. And I think it just shows the true creativity and just the actual realism of trying to achieve something so impactful with this genre. And I feel like it's that one genre that can really do it the best. And maybe I'm biased because I just want to make horror movies. But
I think it's the only genre that can break out this way. You're not seeing independent dramas or comedies break out in theaters this way. You're just not. It's only horror. It's only horror. That's what's so fascinating about this genre. It's a beacon of hope for the cinematic landscape.
I love that. A beacon of hope.
I mean, it really is. And I don't know. I don't know what to say about this. I think you and I, is this our YouTube channel? Are we going to get a big break from our podcast because now we're on YouTube?
Possibly.
Is that lame? Or is that cool? Like, how do you feel about this?
To be very honest, because I know we want to be as honest as we can, we've talked about this. A few years ago, it would have kind of bothered me. I would have kind of, maybe not bothered me, sorry, that's not the right word. I would have disregarded it quicker. I'd have like, oh, because growing up, I never wanted to be a YouTuber. I know I'm a younger guy, but I'm very old fashioned in a lot of my mindsets, and especially in the way I was taught and just the movies I like. For some reason, I'm like a 55-year-old man still listening to Sabbath for the very first time and just getting in the vibe. And so I would have been like, I don't want to be a YouTuber. I want to be a filmmaker. But the last few years, I guess my horizon has opened up a little bit, and I've been able to really see. And I guess my opinion is now it's more of a testing ground. If you can achieve success over here, if you can tell stories that connect with an audience, then you can tell stories that connect with an audience over here. And I guess I came from a more closed-minded perspective a few years ago, maybe a little bit not jaded, but like, yeah, just a bit closed-minded. And that's one thing, and this is another thing. But I've kind of opened my eyes up a little bit, and I've kind of been a bit more accepting with these new success stories, because at the end of the day, if you're telling a story that's connecting with an audience and you're eliciting emotion through a story, that's all what it's about. And I love that. I mean, but that's just my perspective. Are you similar? Are you different? Have you always been on that train? What about you?
No, I'm like you. I like making films. Making a YouTube channel is a lot of work, so I have a lot of respect for people that can put together a YouTube channel and actually put out stuff. The algorithm will reward creators that are constantly pumping out material. So it is a lot of work. Making a film is hard. You got to make it takes months. And if it's a feature, it takes years. You can't keep feeding this algorithm. What Curry did is, he had a sketch comedy channel where they're just pumping out stuff that's really easy to do with a couple characters, and what it's doing is it's a great training ground for learning about attention of a viewer. Like, that's valuable, and I can see how that's valuable. I look at it like, you know, Hollywood will always go and try to like find new talent and voices in different places. Right now it's YouTube, and it should be, because that does make sense. You're putting out stuff, you're editing, you're making content, and you're doing it, in a way that's interacting with an audience and building an audience. So it's totally like logical. It makes sense. In the past, before YouTube, it was like television, or like
Mhm.
music videos, or even further back, it'd be like plays, like Broadway. There's always like Hollywood's always looking for voices somewhere. And right now it does make sense that that's the platform, especially considering YouTube is the #1 streaming platform. It has more viewers that watch content on that platform than Netflix or Disney
Mhm.
combined. And
And
so of course that's a breeding ground for talent.
And if you already have like 1 million or even 500,000 followers, that's basically free. Like you're almost free advertising to have a creator make a movie and that he can self-promote it and advertise it. So it's almost smart from the producer standpoint of like, let's get somebody who's hot, who we know can do it, to kind of emulate that success again, because you can kind of feed into hey, I got 2 million subscribers, feed into that. Like Markiplier's movie, for example. That's a great thing where he was able to self-fund Iron Lung through a lot of his subscriber base. And I was one of them. Chris Stuckman's another one. I actually supported the Chris Stuckman Shelby Oaks years ago when he did the Kickstarter campaign, because Chris Stuckman was a huge influence on me as a kid, and I really wanted to see him succeed and make his movie. And I think he raised 1.4 1.5 million, something like that, and it made a profit. It didn't do as good as say Obsession or The Backrooms box office wise, but it was able to do well enough and make its budget back. And I think it's, if you can lean into what you already have working for you, it makes it a much easier yes, and you can connect with more people that way too. So I think that's also another benefit of YouTube, where if you've already got this pre-established audience, you can just kind of feed off that and build more people from there too, which is very incentivizing for somebody like a producer who's like, how do we sell this movie? Well, let's start with his audience and then go for a genre audience, and you can kind of bridge the two.
Yeah, and if you look at those 3 recent examples, Iron Lung, Backrooms, and Obsession, they're 3 very different examples, actually. I mean, yes, they're all YouTubers, but they're very different.
Hmm.
Iron Lung was a success because he was able to bring his audience out. His audience was, the reason why he got into theaters, because they called theaters and they demanded they play the movie, and he really leveraged the audience. Backrooms is a little bit different. He created an online lore. He created online IP. That went crazy viral, right? And Obsession, he created a way of making movies. Did this massive audience come from his YouTube channel? I don't think so. I think what happened is he just made a great movie. It's actually just a great movie.
Hmm.
Like, I saw it at TIFF. I was there when it premiered, and I remember thinking and saying to my friends, my co-writer friend Cheryl, and some other people, saying that that's one of the best horror films I've seen. Like, that's my new favorite film of the year. That one.
Hmm.
Like, I didn't know it was going to blow up to be this kind of like pivotal film, but it's just a really good movie.
Hmm.
Do you think the success of that movie has much to do with his YouTube audience, or is it just because it's such a great movie and the word of mouth of that movie is what's driving audiences into it?
I think it's both. Because I'll be honest, I used to watch his skits like years ago. I've known his skits for a long time, and he had I think millions of followers. And I believe his father's also a screenwriter in the industry, so he did have a connection that way that I think did aid him as well. But I do think, again, this is just my perspective, I do think it was a combination of things. I do think him doing these really really successful TikToks helped him. I think it must have. I don't see how it not. That's just how I see it. But also, you're right though.
In terms of the audience coming to theaters?
In terms of, I would say, getting the word out and then creating an establishment that led to a lot of word of mouth. But you're right, though. If he made a piece of shit movie, no one would care. It got into TIFF, and he did a really good job. I think it was a combination of him having an online presence, and maybe it was the online presence allowed him to get in the room with these producers to give him the money. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. Maybe the big
only
audience...
750,000. That's such a small budget. I mean, it's interesting. We should learn more about how that was produced, and how they, because I just think they're three very different case studies that all those roads lead back to YouTube, but they're different. They're different.
And I do think word of mouth.
Interesting.
I would definitely say word of mouth is huge for Obsession, because like I've talked to so many people just in my everyday life, and everyone's talking about it. Like, oh, have you seen? I've heard of it. All this stuff.
I've talked about it since September.
And you know what's funny is I like Obsession, but I've been talking about Hokum since I saw it. Like, for me, my favorite movie of the year is Hokum. I'm all over Hokum. Again, I get why people probably love Obsession a bit more, but Hokum just hit a bone in me. The storytelling, Adam Scott's character, some reveals that aren't even to do with horror stuff. It's just a great story. And also, if I may be, I did see how being a TikToker influenced parts of Obsession, and I liked Obsession, but I do, like, for me, I'm okay with scenes a bit slower. I'm okay with slow scenes playing out, and I felt Obsession was very well paced but very quick.
What's that?
I thought that Hokum had a few more scenes that kind of stood back and let it play out a bit slower. And this is a personal preference thing. Like I said, I'm kind of old-fashioned. Like, I can watch 50s movies and not be bored by the pacing. But I have some friends that would never be able to watch that. And I understand that's a preference thing. But for me, I just felt I was able to see the influence of that TikToker origin influence some of his pacing and editing choices in Obsession that is very effective for a younger audience. That's very quick, boom, 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 and I get it. But for me, I think I just respond more emotionally to things that kind of play out and build a little bit more slowly. And I think that's why Hoka maybe struck a chord with me, but I don't want to take anything away from the success of Obsession, because I get it, and I think it's still great. But I think that shows the age in the filmmakers. Curry's 26, and the director of Hokum, I think, is like in his 40s or 50s. He's an older guy, and I could almost see the age in the film. I could see that kind of, TikTok, like, coming from TikTok world, coming from maybe more short film classic cinema world. And I think maybe that's where my association a few years ago kind of came from. And it has opened up now, like I said, but I still noticed a few editing techniques and a few things that I was like, okay, I can see where this came from as a modern day interpretation of a TikTok launchpad. If that makes sense, I hope.
Yeah. I mean, so for this podcast, what are the directing lessons here that an audience could take away from this? Like our audience, young filmmakers wanting to make movies. What are the lessons here? Because to me, the big kind of question here, and we touched on this in our first episode, is like, should people who want to make horror films, should they be going out there to try to build a YouTube audience and make a YouTube channel? Because we've always talked about, like, make your film. And that's a very different message than make a YouTube channel and build an audience. Those are two different things. I've never built a YouTube audience. I make films, but what's the lesson here? Should young filmmakers I think they should. I think they should do both.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they shouldn't be closed-minded, and I think since I've had kind of like an awakening of like accepting a bit more things as I've gotten older, I think that's the lesson is don't put down where someone comes from, because at the end of the day, he was just making YouTube and TikTok films. That's what they were. He was telling a story in a different kind of context, and it led to this. So I would say to filmmakers, do both. Make your short films right, and definitely do the TikTok YouTube thing, because it all coincides together. And maybe your goal isn't to be the biggest influencer in the world. And that's not my goal. I just want to make movies. I want to write classic films and make movies. But you can also use TikTok and YouTube as like a training ground. Make stuff for cheap. Get an instant reaction from an audience. Practice techniques. And I feel like if you use it as a training ground and using it to build an audience and hone your skills, and then when you go make a movie and you have to play with somebody else's money, that's when you kind of go, okay, this is the classic approach, but it can be learned from, I think, the online approach that we're seeing.
So what we saw Curry do is build a YouTube channel with great sketches that are very funny where he's starring in them. So he's performing and he's making these, he's editing, he's doing all the work. I think that's great. And I think there's a lot of, but I think there's a lot of directors out there that don't want to put themselves on camera. Spike Jonze is one of my favorite directors ever. He's so shy on camera.
Mhm.
People, David Sandberg is another
I
one.
was just gonna say, yeah,
He
yeah.
does YouTube stuff, but in terms of acting and performing, like, if you're the type of person like Curry that can perform and wants to be on camera and can act and can pull it off, that's great. You should be doing YouTube sketches. You should be doing some sort of YouTube channel because look at what he did. He just took him and his buddy and made so much content and learned about how to retain attention from an audience and build an audience. That's fantastic. For anyone listening that's shy, that maybe that they like don't really want to be on camera, that's always been my situation. I've never wanted to put my face on camera ever. I mean, now I don't care. But growing
This is
up, and
doing this podcast is a big step for you.
well, I'm not acting, right? If you asked me to
Yeah, yeah.
act, if I had to go and like act in a sketch, I mean, maybe it'd be fun. I don't know. I just
Say that again, but there's more at stake this time, Jeffrey. Please.
Are you directing me? Are you directing Dread?
I'm trying to make it creepy.
I don't know. I just never wanted to be performing. I wanted to be directing. So that's it. So for people out there listening that feel that way, I think you can still build a YouTube channel. You don't have to be the face of it necessarily. Maybe there's another way. Maybe there's another way to create stuff that builds an audience. There was a Hollywood Reporter article that was trying to find the next big YouTube horror director, and they list all these people, and some of them are just people that are like curators of the genre. They're not necessarily making sketches. They're just like doing kind of what we're doing. They're just like contributing to the
Commentary,
genre.
stuff like that.
Yeah, and so it's like, maybe there's other ways. I think building a YouTube channel, if you're a young person, obviously is a very smart idea. I think
Yeah.
ultimately what led to this, there's a lot of people doing it. There's millions of people doing that. Ultimately, what led to the success of that movie is that it's a fucking great movie. He wrote a great script and he made every directing decision was intelligent. The biggest and most important one was the casting.
I was gonna say the casting of the main girl was phenomenal. She's gonna be a star. She's fantastic.
The script and the movie's so good, but with her performance, it's fucking amazing.
So I'm just looking at her name. I don't want to pronounce it wrong. Indy Navarrete.
Yeah, Indy. That's what I kept saying after TIFF. I'm like, this actress is going to blow up. Like, I think she's going to get a nomination. She should get a nomination.
That would be amazing if Obsession got an Oscar nomination. That would be incredible.
I think it will. I think it will because that performance is incredible. And it's how do you pull that off? It's weird and it's funny and it's genuinely scary and it's tragic and it's all these things. It's a perfect performance. And like he captured that with her and he wrote the script and I think like he just made a great movie. It's just a great movie. He's a great young filmmaker and he deserves what's happening right now. Hopefully his ego can stay in check. Hollywood has a way of destroying people.
I've seen his attire change. He used to dress very differently, and then he's seen in all these interviews. And I was like, oh, he's got those glasses on. He's got a hat. So I wonder what the transformation is like once you gain success.
Well, it doesn't really matter as long as the movies are good, right?
Of course.
Ego can get out of control, be a maniac. It's fine as long as the movies are good. You'll be tolerated. So.
Yeah. No,
he seems awesome, and it's just very, very. It's very exciting for the industry because I feel like it's going to generate a lot of interesting deals for low budget film.
It's going to show producers that they can take a chance. They can really take a leap and invest in not only an idea but in a person. Because I feel like these producers are investing in people now. It's he made a great script, but they're like, you are the guy to do this. And that was the same thing with Markiplier's whole team, Chris Duckman's team. They invested in the guy and they got the movie done. They did every right thing. So I think it's them just really being resourceful and being able to find talent in new exciting places. And like we've just been saying, YouTube is such a great ground for that. Particularly, it's funny coming from comedy and going to horror. So many great comedians are making horror movies, and I think it has to do with timing. A great comedian is all about timing and so is horror. A great jump scare depends on misdirection and then bah, you know what I mean? And it's so correlated and so similar in so different ways that just seeing all these great people who are doing such funny stuff are so effective at doing horror. And I noticed how also funny and scary Obsession was at the same time. Very Sam Raimi-esque, actually. I would give him that compliment in the best of way possible.
It's fun. It's fun to watch, even though it's terrifying and it's tragic to imagine your body being controlled by somebody and having your will taken away, your free will. It's like It's a terrifying concept, but it's still a fun movie to watch, because it is like it just blends all these things together in a masterful way. Spectacular first film.
And I know, and even like moving forward to this year, there's other horror movies coming out that are really like big. Like the new Resident Evil movie is huge. The trailer is doing bonkers right now, and it's just showing that this 2026 is like the year of horror, and there's still a few more coming out. I haven't seen Passengers. Have you seen Passengers yet?
I did. Yes, I did.
I need to see Passengers. I heard isn't it based off a short film?
I think it's based off of a book. I'm not sure. I did see it. I saw it the same night that I saw.
Oh yeah, you did like a marathon. You saw like 3 movies in one night. Yeah, you were
Well,
like
'cause
boom, boom, boom.
I've been scouting. This whole, like I said, this whole thing happened while I was away in the middle of nowhere, scouting for this big project, and I was isolated on in the remote wilderness. And then
I didn't hear from you. I was like, Justin's gone. Directing Dread's gone. It's just going to be me talking to a lemon. It's going to be boring, but I'll try. But it's good to see you. It's good that you're back from the middle of nowhere.
Well, and I came back and it's like, oh my God, look at our beautiful genre, just all the way, out there making it happen. It's like, yes, the low budget indie film rises once again. And the theaters are filling with young people that care about authentic stories, that want a communal experience. Concerts are too expensive. Everything's too expensive, but you can go to a horror film in a theater with your friends, and it's a relatively low cost, and it's going to be a roller coaster ride if it's the right storyteller. And you got these voices coming out that are luring these new audiences in, and this is just revealing that like franchise fatigue is finally like here, and hopefully the message has been sent to the Hollywood powers that be that stop it, enough,
Yeah.
enough with this.
I know you and I always talk. We don't want this to be a negative channel, and I don't want to be negative either. There's no point. And as filmmakers, no, I'm about to be negative.
You can be negative. No one's listening.
Yeah. For all our 4 viewers, sorry for this negative bit because I want to be positive too. But I think. I think it's okay to be a bit negative when you're making fun of the big guys. So let's make fun of Mandalorian and Grogu right now.
You can punch up. It's okay.
Exactly, right? So that movie was what 150 million, around $100 million, something like that.
And dropped 70% in weekend 2, while Obsession rose, what was it, like 40% or something ridiculous?
And I think it's because they made a 4-episode Mandalorian TV series in a movie. They just made 4 episodes. I don't know if you've seen it, but it literally feels like a TV episode just spliced together. It didn't feel cinematic. It didn't feel like a movie. And it's also, keep in mind, the first Star Wars film in the last, I think, 7 years. It was not an event. Star Wars used to be an event, and I remember when it was mere years ago. And again, I like Star Wars, but I'm not even the biggest Star Wars guy in the scheme of things. Do you know what I mean? Like, I like other franchises that inspired me a bit more. And I'm still aware of the impact that Star Wars has always had as a franchise. And seeing Mandalorian and Grogu, no one cared. No one cared.
It's just, we've seen it. It's not original. It's just IP. It's feeling stale. And the fact that this little horror movie is just kicking its butt is cool. I love Jon Favreau. Actually, Jon Favreau is one of my favorite directors of all time. I love Jon Favreau, and I like Star Wars. I've got Star Wars toys right behind me. I'm a fan of film, so you have to be a fan of Star Wars. But like, fuck, it's been done forever. Stop it. We need independent films that are made for a lower budget to happen. Because if you're a studio, you can take $10 million and make one mediocre movie and take a risk, or you can find 10 Curries and make 10 like low budget $1 million movies that could blow up. And this is the Blumhouse. It's cool to see Blumhouse having this moment too, because they're responsible for these movies coming out. Like they're leading the charge right now.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, did A24 do Backrooms?
Yeah.
Was that A24?
It's A24, and it's A24's biggest film.
Yeah.
Their biggest opening release ever.
Which is crazy to see.
It's crazy.
It's awesome to see.
By a 20-year-old.
Yeah, no, honestly, and it's and again, it's like when you think of the profit margin for a movie like Mandalorian and Grogu, so I don't want to be all off here. So what was the budget for that movie? Because a movie like that, it has to make like 2.3 times its budget back just to break even with the marketing and theater and everything like that. And it's showing that like a lot of people it's not as profitable as you think. And these other movies that are so low budget, they have so high potential to go. Like even a movie like Hokum. Hokum was not the box office smash as I wish it was. It only grossed like around $25 million on a $5 million budget, but that's still 5 times its budget. budget, it's still firmly in profitability, and it wasn't a big risk for them. $5 million, 1 star, cool concept, great execution, you can make your money back. Or you can do big CGI fest for the next 2 hours and whatever, you know what I mean? And I think it's showing that people really are sick of that. People, and again, I let me just say this before I my next part. I love He-Man. I grew up watching a lot of old
I
He-Man
can't wait to
stuff.
see that.
I can't wait to see it, but I've heard it's basically a Marvel movie.
I've heard it's surprisingly good.
So I've heard mixed things overall, but I've heard it's basically one of those movies where every 10 seconds there's a joke deflating the tension. And that is, and I'm only mentioning this because that is my #1 gripe with modern cinema. Of anything. It can be anything. And I criticize any movie for this where they don't let the tension sit. They go, oh, it's Tony Stark making a joke about it.
You haven't seen it. You haven't seen it, so you don't know. Maybe it works. Maybe
You're
it's maybe it's a
absolutely
different
right.
tone. You're knocking it before you try it here.
And you know what? And that's where I tried to brace the negativity. I don't mean to be. I hope it's great. I'm going to watch it and I want it to be good.
I'm surprised by the reactions I'm seeing because
Yeah.
everyone's saying, "Oh, this movie's actually really fun. Doesn't take itself seriously. It's really charming. It's a big, dumb blockbuster in like the best way." I grew up collecting all He-Man toys as a child, and I can't wait to see it. I don't know why they're making it now. Like it's a few decades late, but okay. What kid is playing with He-Man? I don't get it. Is that a thing now?
I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm just a cynical, jaded a-hole who wishes my movie had that budget. And I'm okay with being that guy for right now. And I am going to see it, and then we'll talk about He-Man, and we'll somehow tailor it to horror on the next episode.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a place for those big movies. There's a place for franchise movies. There's like, I can't wait to see Toy Story 5 with my kid. You know, there's some movies coming out that are, you know, legacy IP and franchise films that I'm excited about. It's cool. It's been dominating for years, for decades. It's been that. And so it's
the new Shrek movie, I will say, of all the sequels I want to see, I'm always interested in a new Shrek movie.
It's gonna be great.
Always.
I mean, they're fun.
I hope it's good. Well, you say it's going to be great, but like Shrek 4 was okay. Like, let's be honest. Like, let's not be too positive. Shrek 4 was good.
Oh, it's like pizza. It's always good. It's just pizza.
Well, you're more positive than I. I'm in a cynical mood. I had a long day at work.
Listen, is this podcast called Directing Dread or Directing Animation?
Hey, let's talk about Monster House. There's a lot of dread in Monster House, which is one of the first horror films I'd ever seen, and it's animated. And I think to this day, it's one of the biggest reasons why I love making horror movies.
That's a genre film for sure.
Monster House is a kid horror film, 1,000%. It's funny. Don't get me wrong, it's funny, and it might have the geist of a comedy, but there's some genuine terror in that movie. And Nevercracker still scares me to this day. And sorry, I had to pull it back to Monster House at some point.
Yeah. Well,
or Paranorman.
Well, okay. So we always talk about takeaways, right? And the takeaways for me here is like, okay, if I've never made a movie and I'm inspired and I want to start making movies, I'm looking at YouTube, I'm looking at this moment, I'm thinking, okay, there's your broadcast network. You can just be a producer tomorrow and start on YouTube, and like you're seeing success in the form of these films. You know, after years of practice, they're coming out with successful projects. So that's very inspiring. I think like my son's 10. We've talked about this. I want to make some movies with him. I'm looking at this moment going, maybe I should just make movies with my kid as a little YouTube thing.
Yeah.
Because you could just, it's two people and then like one camera in your own location. You just repeat, you repeatedly use the same characters and just make a whole bunch of stuff for fun.
And I think it's just so good generally just for practice. Like, I think of like how many times you're shooting a basic coverage and you're like, and then after shooting the same skit 50 times, you're like, well, let's use a Dutch angle. Let's put the camera behind us. And you inherently, after doing it all of these times on these smaller, no-risk things, you inherently just become more creative. And I think that's what Curry did so well, is that he just practiced all of his filmmaking techniques on all these kind of simple skits. He just got better and better and better. So a takeaway for me is perhaps I should have been less closed-minded as a younger filmmaker, but a bit more open to making YouTube skips, and perhaps I would have found a different level of success, because I'm always looking for things to improve in myself. And I look back at my past where could I have gone better, right? And maybe my classic sensibility, my old-timey sensibilities has maybe gotten in the way of that. So seeing success like this kind of reinvigorates me to go, you know what, lean into this, keep doing this because I love doing this podcast, and this is kind of our YouTube way, you know what I mean? So this is a great way of starting an our kind of commentary on being kind of YouTube. So that's my biggest thing, is the people that start on YouTube have just an unlimited resources of practice and really getting editing and their voice down, so then they can really hammer it home with a budget like what you got with a movie.
Yeah, Hollywood now has a very dramatic reference for a money-making engine in the YouTube universe, and so now all the attention and money is just gonna go in that direction, and so that's the takeaway. It's like, look, if you're gonna consider trends and you wanna, like, ride trends, I mean, that's the trend right now. I mean, you still have to make good movies, and, like, if you don't wanna do a YouTube channel because, you just don't want to, then film festivals are still a great option. Look at Parker Finn and the Smile films. You made a short film, goes to South by Southwest. That is still a viable model for sure. It's just like right now, the hot attention, the story, it's all about YouTube. But I think you don't have to do that if you don't want to. I mean, I guess if I was starting now, I probably would lean heavy into YouTube and just start getting those reps, those
Yeah.
reps of like editing, putting stuff together quickly, and it really it really forces you to focus on the story and the writing and the characters because you're just doing a YouTube video. You're just pointing cameras at you and your family and whatever and making like something that's a story and a concept. So it distills the process down to like concept, performance, and then just putting it together and generating an audience online. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
That's a takeaway.
Yeah. And also, I think it gives you really thick skin too, because anyone who watches your videos can comment instantly whether they like it or they don't like it. And if you're making films, you're making something to be viewed and judged. That's inherently what it is. And I know some filmmakers can be a little bit precious, or they can be a little bit nervous and maybe like introverted in a way. And I feel like a YouTube channel might really help a lot of people be a bit more, okay, this didn't work. How do I get better? Oh, this worked. Let's lean into that. And that instant, I think, connection to an audience that can comment on it right away and tell you what's working or what's not working, I think is also so important for people being like, okay, that didn't work. Let's pivot this way. Let's pivot this way. And let's kind of see what this audience wants is, and kind of like makeshift their audience and makeshift their content or their stories for those people. And I think that's how they find their voice, with that instant critical, just, I like this, I don't like this. Because as we all know, people on the internet are always very kind.
But also just shaking off perfectionism, like just putting
Mhm.
stuff out there and making stuff and just getting the experience of just like making stuff because you can really paralyze yourself with perfectionism and trying to make the perfect thing, and this one thing is going to lead to this one thing and this one thing. Or you just pump out a wave of stuff and build up a thick skin and just become a creator. It is a lot of work. But I guess if you look at it from the perspective of like, well, make that work fun and don't be precious about it. It won't break your heart. And then you'll you'll just gain more and more confidence through the experience of making stuff for that channel. There's no harm in it, right? So
Exactly. You have nothing to lose. It's a playground to practice your skills, to kind of get out of your comfort zone. And like, even for this podcast as an example, my first episode, I was kind of nervous. I was like, oh, how am I coming across? But now I'm a lot more confident. I feel a bit more like, however I look, however I come across, I don't care. Like, I am who I am, and I just kind of want to be me. And I think that's so important even for filmmakers, because it's like showing your work to somebody can be horrifying. Like, I'm every day to my premiere, I actually have like more and more anxiety to a degree where I'm like, I guess I just won't go and watch my own movie. But I think if I had maybe made more videos and had more of that instant connection to an audience, maybe for the years, I would be less nervous inherently, because it's just another day, been there, done that. So I feel like that could have aided in people's just the way of getting over being too precious about your work and being scared to show it to someone, of just being like, this is it. I want to know what you think. Let's kind of go from here.
yeah. And speaking from my personal experience, I came up directing television. So for me, television was YouTube. Getting paid to
Hmm.
make stuff. I've always had a job and been hired to produce stuff professionally in television. YouTube didn't really exist, and when it did come out, it wasn't like it wasn't what it is now, where you could build that type of engagement. So if I was starting today, I actually wouldn't suggest people go into television if you wanted to be a director. I would suggest you go to YouTube and develop your voice as a filmmaker.
Hmm.
You know, because the TV industry is a tricky one. It's really hard to get into. It's almost impossible to be a director in that industry, and it's a shrinking industry compared to YouTube. So my path has been that television, which I still work in television. I still love it. But if you're starting today, you're not going to start directing TV necessarily. You can do. I mean, maybe you can, but it's like but you have to get permission to do it.
Yeah.
With YouTube, you don't need permission. You can start, you can be cringy, you can make all the mistakes. You don't have a boss, you're not going to get fired. You're just going to develop your voice and you're going to get the reps in, and you're going to find a way to like eventually get good without having to ask permission or be hired. I have to go get hired by networks and producers, and that's very different
Hmm.
from just making your thing. So It's an interesting moment, interesting conversation. I feel like I'm just gonna start making YouTube videos with my kid. And this channel, you and I, we've talked about making films. This is a good platform for us to just make stuff too. Like maybe this thing I'm finishing right now, this horror film that we've talked about that I'm finishing, maybe I just put that on YouTube. Maybe I
Yeah.
put that on this channel. I don't know. It's like a whole new world where now you just like put it on
Mhm.
YouTube and then boom, here's all the millions.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think when we were talking about takeaways, one thing I guess I'm just realizing is my probably biggest takeaway is that everything's always changing. The industry is always changing. You just talked about how TV was kind of the YouTube when you were kind of coming up, and now YouTube's taking over. So I think with filmmakers, it's go wherever the opportunities are, whether if that's YouTube or whatever, because it might change in the next 15, 20 years. And those filmmakers would be like, well, it was YouTube, now it's this other thing. I would say just look where the people are, look where the attention is going, and follow that. Follow where the opportunities are lying and where people are actively connecting with the most amount of people. It seems to be where it always goes. So I would just say as a filmmaker, be open to new things, always accept that the industry is changing, be open-minded, and be willing to embrace something new. And even if it's something you're not familiar with at first, because I think that is going to lead quickest to the most success in connecting with the most people possible.
I think this conversation just distills down to like building a film or building an audience to eventually make films for. And like those are just two different things. Like in television, the audience is owned by the network. The network has the audience. Like the people who make TV don't have the audience. The network has their audience and you're making it for their platform. And YouTube, you have to build your own audience and you are the network. And anybody can be their own network. It's actually incredible when you think about it.
You get to be your own boss. You're your own executive. No one's telling you what to
It's
do.
just so much work. You have to love it. I mean, if you're out there and you have this like burning bloodlust desire inside of you, like fucking stop talking about it. Open a YouTube account and start fucking making stuff because it's so much work. And then I guess you're gonna learn pretty quick whether you love it enough to actually pursue this.
We're definitely seeing some new things, particularly in indie filmmaking right now, where people are getting plucked from. So be a part of it. Don't be left behind.
All right, Jacob. Thanks for the podcast. Thanks for your time. This is our YouTube channel. Sorry.
No, that's amazing. I have so much to learn from you. You have that one. It was a 5, then to a 10. It was a perfect rise.
It's more like a game show host. I don't know what that is. We got to work on our YouTube voices. I do, at least. Bye.
Thanks, guys.